Hi, everybody. My name is Lauren Lichterman. I work with the Green Sports Alliance as the collegiate specialist. Very excited to be bringing this conversation to everyone today. The conversation is being recorded, which everyone probably got a notification on that. We are going to be talking with some amazing speakers today about Earth Month. And how to get your campus and ideally your athletics department involved in Earth Month activations. We'll have some presentations from each of the speakers, and then we'll have some time for Q&A at the end. So if you've got any questions that you'd like to ask, please feel free to put them in the chat. I will be monitoring it a bit, as well as my colleague, Brad Fogel, who is on with Green Sports Alliance as well. He's our senior memberships manager. I will let our wonderful speakers introduce themselves momentarily, but that is our plan for today, is to just chit chat about what's been accomplished, give some ideas for what you might be able to do on your campus. And then again, at the end, have time for questions if you're curious how to make the things happen on your campus. So to get us started, oh, I guess I'll also in this, on the slide that you're seeing, there's a QR code for the Green Sports Alliance newsletter. If anyone would like to sign up for that, that's where the Green Sports Alliance will share all the information about all of the things that we have going on. And we will be giving more information in the very near future about our Green Sports Alliance Summit. Our big conference this summer is going to be in mid-June in LA. And I'm actually calling in from LA right now. We're here for a site visit. So sign up for that newsletter. It'll share all the good collegiate content we have, as well as everything else coming out of GSA. I will go ahead and I feel like there's no other housekeeping things I've missed. So we'll go ahead and let Elaine introduce herself. We'll do intros of each panelist, and then we'll kick into your presentations. Elaine, take us away.
Okay, hello everyone. Great to be here. Thank you for joining us. My name is Elaine Fiore. I'm an environmental educator for Broward County Public Schools, and I have the pleasure of spearheading Food Waste Prevention Week with a dynamic team. So excited to talk to you all about that soon. And I'll hand it off to Lee.
Thanks, Elaine. My name is Lee Franklin. I am the college campus coordinator for the Earth Day Network. And so while I'm not currently associated with a college, I do work with a lot of them. And I graduated from Appalachian State University in North Carolina in 2020. So I'm excited to talk to you all about our big plans for Earth Day and how we can all work together. And I'll hand it over to Chris.
Hi, everybody. My name is Christopher M. Kalaw. I work as the sustainability assistant at the LA Memorial Coliseum, and that's where USC Trojans play, fight on. And I'm here to talk about zero waste in sports, more on the sporting side, and how to collaborate with the university stakeholders and anybody else in your community. Really happy to be here, and I'll pass it on to Jay.
Thanks, Chris. Hello, everyone. My name is Jay Price. I'm at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville, and I'll be talking today a little bit about how we've engaged with our athletics department on campus with different engagements, competitions, those sorts of things. So excited to be here. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for the great intro, speakers. We are going to kick it back to Lee, and let him introduce everything that earthday.org is working on and what they stand for in this campus coalition. Again, if anyone's got any questions, throw them in the chat, or if you'd like to message them privately to myself or Brad, you can do that as well. If you see a question in the chat that you also are curious about, you can add an emoji to it so we'll know at the end if we've got to sift through which questions to ask, which ones are most interesting to this group. All right, now Lee, you can go.
Thanks, Lauren. Yeah, so I'm here on behalf of the Earth Day Campus Coalition specifically. Earthday.org is a larger organization that is focused on promoting programming around Earth Day across the globe. But my program, the Campus Coalition, is focused just on college campuses in the United States. And I will say, after looking at some of y'all in the chat, I think I probably have sent some of you emails already. So I would love to get in touch with you. Even if you have not received an email from me, I would still love to get in touch with you after this. So I'll kick things off a little bit of a history of Earth Day. Earth Day really came out of the environmental movement, which started in the 1960s with Rachel Carson's Silent Spring, and as well as a few major environmental disasters near the end of the 60s. And Senator Gaylord Nelson of Wisconsin basically came up with the idea of holding a major environmental teach-in in 1970 on college campuses. Um, and uh, and so he hired um, Dennis Hayes, who is on the next slide.
Okay,
Sorry.
My
He
bad.
hired he recruited Dennis Hayes, a young activist who'd been involved in the Vietnam War protests, to organize these teach-ins. Teach-ins were originally a form of protest against the Vietnam War. And Hayes organized a massive effort to mobilize students across the United States. It turned from a teach-in into a larger holiday, which ultimately ended up being a smashing success, and basically set the stage for what would become Earth Day today. That first Earth Day had 20 million Americans participating across the U.S. all at the same time. So it's the largest single day protest ever conducted in world history. And what's so special about Dennis Hayes is that he's the founder of EarthDay.org, who I work for now, and we are a direct offshoot of that. And so, yeah, like I said, we had so
A little slow on
so
these.
no worries, no worries. So Earth Day today is now a well-established holiday. It's the largest secularly observed holiday in the world. And the way we view it is that it's a great opportunity to elevate different crucial issues in the environmental movement. And one of those issues, the one that we are promoting as our theme this year. Oh, I'm sorry. I jumped. You're right. I'm going in the wrong order. Thank you, Lauren.
Do you want? I can go back if you want to.
Um, I'll talk about the theme. My apologies. So the theme this year, going off of that, is people versus plastics, or planet versus plastics. And our goal is to raise awareness of the negative human health effects of plastics. And of course, as you all know, one of the number one ways to reduce plastic use is through waste reduction and the decisions we make when we create contracts, purchase materials, basically facilities decisions that are made on our campuses. So that's where plastics really can be the people versus plastics theme is a great intersection between basically the work that's already being done on college campuses and the actual kind of roots of Earth Day as being a primarily student-run and campus-centered event. I guess we can go back to the previous slide now because that's right. So the Campus Coalition, which is what I'm organizing, is a group of staff, interns, student clubs, student activists, faculty, administrators across the U.S. who are coordinating their programming for Earth Day in 2024. So we are operating mainly in 10 states, but we're working with everybody around the U.S. But the main states we're operating in are Nevada, Arizona, Texas, Florida, North Carolina, Georgia, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Michigan. And so our goal is to basically twofold: to help promote the work that's already being done on your campus, regardless of whether it is, anything that's being done on your campus around Earth Day. We want to help promote. We want to give campuses an opportunity to talk about what they're doing on Earth Day, or about what they're doing around plastics. And we want to basically elevate you all in the discourse of Earth Day this year. So you all have probably already done these steps, but I will go back over them because this is a conversation that we're having with a lot of the people. From our perspective, we want to encourage campuses to take concrete steps to reduce plastics over time, and make those commitments as a part of their observance of Earth Day this year. And so we want, folks to observe or to examine where their campuses can make improvements on plastics policies, to look at what plastics policies you're already carrying out, to improve on that. And if so, how can we help promote that? How can you make those efforts a part of your Earth Day observance so that we can, elevate that work as a part of the broader Earth Day movement this year and moving forward? And so we would love to see folks make commitments to reduce plastic waste in their athletic facilities. Another example of this that we're using kind of more broadly is encouraging campuses to, commit to phasing out single-use plastics in dining services, just as a general example. So our overall goal, in addition to the policy side of things and encouraging you all to elevate the work that you're doing and to make new commitments, is to raise awareness of the issue of plastics. And so we want your campus involved in our larger Earth Day movement. We are working with students across several states to organize local cleanups that would take place on, the same weekend or during the same week. We can use that to drive awareness of the issue of plastics pollution. We want to encourage, when it comes to sporting events, you all know best how you can, most effectively work these commitments or improvements on plastic policy into your work with athletics facilities. But some examples would be, working with your existing sponsors to showcase Earth Day related content at your sporting events, conducting a waste audit during one of your sporting events, or organizing an e-waste or durable goods donation site at one of your sporting events. So just some ways that you can help celebrate the theme of Earth Day and uplift the theme of Earth Day in your athletic work. And so the resources, basically what we hope that you can do with on Earth Day and how we can help is that you can meet with members of our team. We want you to use your efforts on plastic. We want you to share your campus's efforts on plastics as a part of Earth Day, and we want to attract media attention to that work. So we want to, when we're telling this larger story, for example, one big piece of this is putting your events on our Earth Day map. We want journalists and members of the public on Earth Day, when they're wondering what's going on, what can we cover, how can I get involved, we want your events and actions to show up on that map. Even if they might not be open to the public, we would still let people be able to see that it's happening. So, oh,
you're talking about the map. This one has the map on it. Sorry.
yes. No, you're okay. I'm going all over the place here. So some of the tools that we offer right now are a set of toolkits. We have a toolkit on how to conduct a cleanup as a part of our larger Great Global Cleanup Initiative. We have a toolkit on a petition signature drive, which is a larger part of our efforts on the international level to promote a strong language in a global plastics treaty that's being negotiated by the UN. A fashion exchange toolkit, which is something that a lot of students are already working on and have an interest in working on. We also offer toolkits on how to conduct teach-ins, like resources on, again, about with specifics on plastics research, kind of talking points and larger picture, messages on plastics. And then we are working with Solve Climate by 2030, which some of you may know of, which is a group that focuses on organizing teach-ins and making climate a class. So encouraging professors to discuss the ways in which climate change, or in this case, we really want to focus on plastics, are relevant to the field that those professors are talking about. In media, like I mentioned before, the Earth Day map is a really critical piece of our plan of elevating your work, but we also want to promote those efforts on social media. And we have several yes, thank you, Lauren, for sharing that. We have several social media accounts where we are promoting the work that students and faculty and administrators are doing across the U.S. And we, again, like I mentioned, work with our national media contacts, because typically when Earth Day comes around and people in the media are trying to figure out how can they find a story to talk about, the first people, especially on the national level, the first group they come to is us at earthday.org. And so we are now on TikTok and Instagram. You can follow us at Campus Coalition _EDO. That's the username for both social media accounts. So we'd love you to to follow us, and we will follow you back. And if you will give us permission, we would love to promote on our social media the work that you're already doing, and the work you will be doing for Earth Day.
Awesome. Thank you, Lee, so much for that good kind of big overview of all that's possible for Earth Day. As part of Earth Month, and I'm going to kick it to Elaine in just a second, there is Food Waste Prevention Week. And so she'll talk more about that, but I hope everyone's mind's starting to, you know, the wheels are starting to turn on, ooh, here might be things that we can do on our campus with athletics. We'll kick it over to Elaine.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Lee. So Food Waste Prevention Week kind of kicks off Earth Month. It's the first week of April, the 1st through the 7th. The goal of the campaign is to raise awareness and inspire people to take action to prevent food waste. So there's some pictures you could say, well, we'll go back of
Right.
gleaning and bread to tap and volunteer. There's all kinds of activities. It is the approach of the week. It's multi-pronged. It is a social media campaign, but we know everyone learns differently. So there's webinars, there's K through 12 engagement, university engagement, in-person events, and community service. And then now I'll have you go to the next one, Lauren. Thank you. So why should you participate? Many of you already know why reducing food waste is so important, but you may not know that according to Project Drawdown, it's the #1 personal action that people could take to reduce their climate impacts. As we know, it also conserves all kinds of resources. 1/3 of the food that we create ends up in the landfill, and all the resources that are attached with creating that food can be saved as well, improves food access to people in our community, and it also helps to save money. So when we first started out, we've been doing this. We started in 2021 in Florida. We engaged our university students through a hackathon, and which was successful, but it was just a very niche group. And so we expanded by having kind of a menu of activities to engage university students. Well, this year, the past 2 years, this has been a national campaign, and we've got partners from all over. We've engaged there's lots of collegiate chapters, the Food Recovery Network, Sharing Excess, and the Swipe Out Hunger. All their chapters are getting involved as well. A few months ago, I had a call with Shay and Lauren to talk about how we're going to engage Green Sports Alliance, because we have some professional teams that are engaged in Food Waste Prevention Week as well. And once Lauren and I started speaking, she had mentioned that they had the SEC, they had an SEC call, and I asked, oh, was University of Florida involved? Oh, yes, they were. Oh, can you connect me with their sustainability person? So she connected me with Liz from UF Sustainability, and we were able to get a grant, and we have a special pilot we're testing out this year. So we wanted to share it with you. And so as part of the pilot, there's 2 parts to it. One is we are partnering with UF Sustainability. It's the athletic student government, the city of Gainesville, and then there's other nonprofits around the city, like the Bread of Life, and then there's a gleaning organization. And so what we're having the universities do is, #1, you can engage, and this is something everyone could do, is engage on social media, because it is a social media campaign. And to be a partner, it's just registering on the website, which we'll share. And then you could create a social media post. And it could be a post, we've got pre-made posts with the toolkit, or just highlighting the good things that your organization is already doing. Partnering with dining services. One of the groups is doing a Weigh Your Waste event during Food Waste Prevention Week to kind of physically draw attention to how much food is being wasted. So with the University of Florida pilot, we have these groups that are working together to plan, and we're offering the athletes and all of the students opportunities to volunteer and get engaged in the food system during the week, whether it be gleaning on the farm or on campus, or working with one of the food banks. So through the grant we have, however many hours the students volunteer, they'll get matched with dollars that could go back to their organization and their chapter. So that's kind of motivating for them as well. We are taking advantage of the NILs, which I got really excited about. You know, the kids are doing videos on Smoothie King and Circle K, and they're promoting all this merchandise in these organizations. Why don't we use the NILs for good? So we're going to have the students create, they're going to create NILs about why it's important to reduce food waste, as well as engaging their friends and their followers on social media to join them as they're volunteering at these community service events. So we did reach out. Our grant is through Florida. It's a Florida-based grant. But then once we had the call, and I met Jay from University of Tennessee. Tennessee is one of our strong partners, and they love UT. So I was like, Jay, is there a way maybe we could get some SEC rivalry going? So we were working on the grant angle. I don't know that the grant's going to work out this year. However, we can expand ACC. We can expand it for and other organizations for next year as well. And so different colleges, UGA is going to engage as well, and they're engaging in more of the social media aspect. And then we're working with University of Tennessee. So I'll end on that note. And I think, did I have one more slide with information? Oh, I did want to mention this, because our goal is to serve, right? We want to serve and be a resource to you. We want university students to reduce their food waste. And so when we were having the call, I think it was Christopher that mentioned, you know, we have this food and we need to make sure we know who can pick it up and who to donate it to. I just wanted to make sure everyone knows we have this on our Food Waste Prevention Week website. There are lots of different organizations that you just call up, you use the app, they're happy to come get the food. So as part of Food Waste Prevention Week, we like to be a resource as well. So if you have questions, you need help, please feel free to reach out. We'll put my email I'll put my email and the website on the chat. So you can check out the website and register for Food Waste Prevention Week. And then I will hand it over to Jay.
Real quick before Jay hops in, thank you so much, Elaine. That's all really valuable information. Super excited to see how that competition goes between the schools, and how many other schools might want to be part of that either this year or in the future. I see South Carolina has also chimed in that.
Oh, good.
They
and
want
we have lots of partners in South Carolina that would like to help support you.
So this is great, as we all know, and I think that a lot of the people on the call today are maybe more based on the campus side versus the athletic side, but that doing things from a campus perspective in dining halls, that's going to operate differently than how you might be able to approach it in an athletics operation. They do have their own dining halls a lot of the time, but their audience, being student athletes, can sometimes be approached or need to be approached a little differently. I say this more as kind of in thinking how to talk to your athletics department and the nutritionist that they have for the student athletes, that the student athlete population has a higher percentage of risk of disordered eating. And so a food waste engagement program might look a little bit different for that specific population than it's going to look for your general student population. I don't know, Elaine, if you've got anything on that.
Yeah, I'm glad
to approach it, but it's just a little different in athletics.
Okay, I'm glad you mentioned that, because in the UF pilot, we're working with athletics and the non-athletics as well. At University of Tennessee, I think that they're working with the general population, and at University of Georgia, it's twofold. One is through it's funny you mentioned the nutrition. They're working through nutrition and athletics, and then the other way they're working with the general sustainability.
Yeah. So of course, everyone can have a piece of this puzzle, right? We want everyone to go along, but just as some kind of tips for success you might experience a level of hesitation when you're reaching out to athletics. If you talk about things like a plate waste study, and the weighing piece of it. So there's ways to approach it. It's just kind of a different storytelling angle. that might help on engaging athletics.
And it seemed like going through the athletic student government was a nice, it worked, at least in this case, it worked as a nice route because they're looking for, they want to engage in community service. So they're able to, they have their portal as well. I'm learning they have their portal where they put the volunteer events in there, and that way it goes out to all of the athletes. So
yeah. Always
yeah.
kind of these like multiple ways of attack.
Yeah. Yep. And then we're engaging the FRN and the sharing access. Those university chapter clubs will be engaging in as well.
Yeah. So this will be a great kind of transition into Jay sharing what they've been able to accomplish within athletics, not from any sustainability engagement, also related to kind of spring sports. And so we'll let Jay take it away in a bit, but there's, lots of ways to get athletics involved in the things. Setting world records really helps. So we'll let Jay talk about that.
Yeah, so I just dropped something in the chat too, just kind of continuing what Elaine was talking about and what you were talking about with athletics. I didn't really prepare to talk about this, but what you were talking about fits in so well. Actually, food donations on our campus started with our athletics venues. Our concessionaire back in like 2011 came from another sporting venue and actually started the food waste donation program on our campus that we've expanded, and now it's called the Food for Vols program. So all athletics events, all of our regular campus dining, including the one that's specifically for athletes, we capture all the food waste from those locations and it gets repurposed at our Culinary Institute, and they make it into ready to heat or ready to eat meals. So Google, I didn't have the link handy, but yeah, just Google Food for Vols and dropped it in the chat. It's a really great program that I'd love to share with folks. So happy to answer questions on that later too.
And that's the point about food recovery, maybe not, food waste prevention may not in athletics always look like student athletes and in their dining hall and a clean plate type of study. It can look like getting these donations programs largely out of like the hospitality spaces, like you made 12 platters of brisket, but you didn't need that many. So I will make sure to link in the like recap meeting notes for this, the Food for Vols program.
Right on. Thanks, Lauren. Yeah, absolutely. So yes, world records. Of course, that brings the attention of athletics. They love, anybody loves a good competition. So we have what's called the Good Sports Always Give Back program, our old recycling bin there in the picture from back in forever ago, but new orange lid. Was called Good Sports Always Recycle, but our corporate sponsor for that, one of them, Eastman Chemical Company here in Tennessee, they reached out to record setters and wanted to help us set a world record. We have one of the largest stadiums in the country. Neyland Stadium holds roughly 102,000 folks, plus all the tailgating that happens outside. If you've ever been to an SEC or other large conference football game, you kind of know what we're talking about. But in 2022, we set the first world record for largest collection of recyclables at a sporting event. Granted, that was our first attempt at it. So our second attempt, we decided to go head to head with another school. So our corporate sponsor reached out to Michigan and said, hey, why don't we have a friendly competition? So we picked a date, September 23rd, and we had a competition to see who could recycle the most on one day. Michigan also has a very big football stadium, if you're unaware of that, even bigger than ours. And they were playing a really big rival. We weren't, but we still won. So very excited about that, and broke our previous year record. So very excited to a little not very humble brag in this case of setting a world record. But I will say it can be beat. So it's definitely something that's doable if you're considering doing it. It really wasn't that difficult. The record setters folks came on campus, had yellow vests, made sure we were doing everything legitimately, made us take videos of everything that we recycled, etc. So it was a really great program. Highly recommend any type of engagement like that with setting world records. There's little teeny world records you can do as well. So fun way to bring attention to campus, get people excited about recycling. And, then you get to create really great videos like this one. I'm going to show off too.
Ready for it.
Thanks. I hope you're all riled up now. So yes, join us in that competition. We'd love to continue that and expand it to other teams as well. So
And
yeah,
great
that was really fun.
showcase that Eastman partnership.
I'm sorry, say that again.
Great way to showcase that Eastman partnership.
Yeah, of course. They made the video, so little shameless plug on both of our parts, but we love the partnership. It's been one of the, don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure we have the oldest stadium recycling program in the country. It started in 1993 in a very major way. So somebody prove me wrong, but I'm pretty sure that is a fact. So anyway, folks are probably familiar with the Campus Race to Zero Waste. Also throwing in some shameless plugs here. I was on the board of directors for that organization for a very long time. Had to step away from that, but such a great thing that they do. Again, more competitions, and some of these are more focused on sports or ways that you can do it in the spring as well, since we're talking about Earth Day. We actually won another competition, so there's a little badge. I got to talk, got to brag a little bit. Yeah, exactly. So technically we tied. It was a tie with Georgia Tech. But the category that we tied in was Clean Earth Challenge. And it was specifically focused not so much on how much you can recycle, but how much you pick up from areas like litter that you pick up and collect. And again, we have a huge campus, lots of people tailgating. We were playing the University of Georgia that weekend, so the number one team in the country at that time. So it was a big game, as you can imagine. Game day, ESPN Game Day was on campus, etc. So not only was it volunteers that we recruit, our staff, but it was also, there's a student organization on our campus called Smokey's Cleanup Crew. And they get at least 100 students to go volunteer on Sundays and go pick up litter on campus as well as in our surrounding neighborhoods. So all of that information, they actually separate the trash and the recycling. We weigh it all separately. Really cool. Reported those numbers, and turns out we did a lot of pickup. So lots of campus partners too. It's definitely not a one entity win in this category. Everybody is involved and pitches in, if you will. So that's a fun one. They have other categories as well, just largest, recycling, composting, food donations, etc. So lots of different categories that you can compete in for that. That is specifically on football games. But in the springtime, they have something for green events. So you can just host an event on campus. A lot of folks do zero waste events, and the highest diversion rate at that event is the one who wins. So lots of opportunity for that with different events during Earth Month, big festivals, etc. They also do a game day basketball challenge. So that may not reach quite into April, but it would get pretty close. You can do the same with softball, volleyball, etc. And then you can do a one building challenge, which is you just pick a building and you track all the waste in that building and how much you recycle, how much you reuse, etc. So some opportunities to engage in other competitions that would, campus and athletics could be involved in a lot of those. So next slide there. So I did want to finish out with one kind of little pilot project that we did at our softball stadium. So softball does reach into April, at least on our campus and in our athletics conference. And while it's not a huge venue, it's actually one of our smallest venues, it's still big enough. It draws a really big crowd. Our team's really good, so that helps, obviously. And everybody loves composting and recycling. So last season, we did a pilot project for the entirety of the regular season. We had volunteers and staff standing at zero waste stations. We also got our mascots come join in on one of these events. So we really learned a lot of great things from this. We were able to convert the utensils and dispensers to compostable, most of the concessions items as well. That name, image, and likeness idea that Elaine was talking about, the NIL. We had an athlete do a promo video that was really awesome. Unfortunately, it's not available anymore. I'd show that one too, but I'll try to dig up a link and send that along if I can. We had local media come, tons of fan engagement. As I mentioned, the mascot. But in the end, the challenges kind of outweighed our ability to keep it going for this season. There were some materials that we just couldn't get past and get either recyclable or compostable. Not to name names or anything, but I will, because it actually works in this situation. M&Ms are one of the things that we sell in our stadiums, and it's a paper box on the outside and a little plastic bag on the inside in some cases, or Skittles, or what are the other ones? Sour Patch Kids, etc. So some of those don't really work for composting, recycling. We actually did engage with Mars Corporation. They actually came to our campus, came to our composting facility, took a tour, and they do have packaging that is compostable, but we couldn't make it work with the timing, the shipping. It's a larger size, so they'd have to change the pricing, etc. But something that we're continuing to work on. The other challenge was food trucks. So in addition to having the concessions inside, which you can control pretty well, they brought in food trucks outside the stadium, but let people come in with that material. So it was really hard to regulate what those folks brought into the stadium. We were using volunteers, and we were cleaning up the seating area between games. And a lot of times you have like double headers or even triple headers, and during tournament weekends, things like that. So that was really hard to keep up with. And then we went into the postseason, and that was after school was out. So we lost all of our volunteers. So we couldn't continue in the postseason. But so we have not continued that pilot, but we learned an awful lot, and we're continuing to work with our athletics and our concessions to hopefully be able to do that in the future and figure out a sustainable way to do it. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Jay. Congrats on all of the successes and all of the lessons learned, and sharing that with the group. We're going to kick it to Chris Kalaw at USC and LA Memorial Coliseum in just a second. But we could talk trash all day. I think maybe we'll have the lessons learned from the zero waste pilot, I think probably are relevant to a lot of people in this room. So maybe we'll continue a future conversation about how to overcome that stuff. And I know Chris is going to talk about what they've been able to accomplish, but the smaller venues are great to pilot things, but then there's also, I'm sure everyone's experienced, an amount of waste that is generated simply by opening up the venue. And so needing to have enough fans come in and offset by like drinking beer, basically, so you can get enough cans to offset that amount of waste generated, I know can be a challenge as well. But we'll kick it over to Chris, and be thinking if y'all got any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. I know Sam asked one, we'll address that. Elaine, thanks for the links, but we can talk through more of that as well. Okay, now I really will kick it to Chris. Go ahead, Chris, tell us everything that you've been knocking out at LA Memorial Coliseum.
Awesome. Thanks, Lauren. Thanks, Jay. It's going to be hard to follow that great video, but I'll try to speak on zero waste in sports and how I've collaborated with campus. So maybe you could get the other side, because I know I see a lot of Office of Sustainability people, and that's that's really who I work with on campus at USC to progress sustainability. And so I want to also connect it to Earth Month, and hopefully my insights can help progress your Earth Month goals and your game plan. So when I think about sustainability and the way that it's been handled at the Coliseum, it's really been a two-pronged approach that's made it successful. And so those two prongs are top-down support, whether that be on-campus administration or Coliseum administration, or the director of stadium operations that really supports my projects and my crazy sustainability ideas, or having our partner support, which is our concessionaire, janitorial staff, making sure that venue operations understands what we're doing, facilities, especially on campus, that everybody is in tune with what everybody's doing. And I know that at certain universities, at least at USC, it can be very compartmentalized, and all the departments work individually. And so being that person that goes out and meets people at different departments and actually facilitates those conversations really gets the complete game plan going. And that way it's not just certain venues succeeding and others not. And so I want to talk about three main points that can really drive sustainability as a whole, but then also be applied to your food waste recovery and Earth Month game plan. And so the first one, I'd say it begins high level. So creating project charters and project timelines that serve as a foundation for your operations. This also includes making policies that are a direct focus. Whether or not these are external or public-facing policies, I think the fact that you have something to rely on and to go back to as a framework for your why, as to why you're doing things, really helps direct your focus. And so when you're thinking about Earth Month, having a why as to why you're doing something, such as your softball game, at Tennessee, having that why really drives the program and the event. Second, I'd say is getting the word out. So working with communications and marketing teams to highlight the work being done, bringing attention to the program, and then also recognizing champions that drive progress. So that can mean just having a social media highlight for the sustainability person at a venue or at the Office of Sustainability that's really working on a project that they're passionate about. This can also include creating materials to highlight progress, creating back of house signage to ensure sustainability is focused, and then thinking holistically about your processes. That also means reaching out to pollers. So not everybody that works in sustainability or in your department those aren't the only people that contribute to the program's success. So one of the things that we've done is have our hauler actually come and do a waste assessment for us. So talking to staff and teaching them, this is what's compostable, this is recyclable. And so when they have opportunities to answer those questions that they might not be able to on a day-to-day basis, and that's helped really clarify things and bring everyone into the program and ensure that all the staff understands what I'm trying to do and what my boss is trying to do. And also that helps with ensuring that down the line, your sustainability goals and your sustainability program is actually being effective and accountable. I know that for us, bamboo spoons weren't being taken anymore a few years back. And so we had to do that switch, but we would never have known that we weren't keeping in touch with our hauler or those people that we might not think are actually part of the process. And then lastly, as Jay mentioned, having those big awards or those, world records really helps. So submitting award applications is really a great way to get started and get social media traction, people to understand what you're doing at the program. And I know this varies state by state. I know that California also, I know there's a Stanford person here. California has a lot of scholarships or, grants or awards that they give out, but just really researching and doing that research on the back end so that when push comes to shove, you can submit those and, hopefully get some recognition for your program. And then lastly, my third point is to request for backup. So working with campus stakeholders to find support for your program. I know that student volunteers can help a lot. And so I wanted to mention bring up something that Jay had mentioned about the postseason losing student support, is really finding areas where students can be a part of it throughout be a part of your sustainability program throughout the whole, course of it. And so that you wouldn't necessarily lose out when you guys end up, hopefully winning and going to the postseason. So for us at USC at the Coliseum, that meant having them just come in during the season for pre-event audits. So really helping me out, making sure that we have products like Lay's chip bags, plastic bottles that aren't outside, that are meant for staff for being sold. And just little things like that add up, because if you have a whole pallet of water bottles that are meant for staff but end up getting sold because the bartenders don't know what to sell, that can really lead to a lot of landfill waste that really ticks off that 10% that you're allowed for zero waste. Also working with university professors is something that you do that might be interesting. Oh, sorry, I said something in the chat. That might be interesting to work on, whether it's them conducting research at your venues or your sites, or including them in those conversations. A lot of professors have students that are interested as well. So I've reached out to a few university professors to just mention that, oh, by the way, we're doing this at the Coliseum. And I had 6 volunteers come in for an event and just that were ready to work in the rain on the weekend, at 5 p.m. just to help out with our waste sorting and the management of, the food donations. So that's really an area of support where you can just honestly just request for it. Next, I would like to talk about working with athletics departments. So that can be as simple as just reaching out to your departments reaching out to those directors and mentioning projects that you want to work with them on. I would say that coming into the conversations, understanding the workflows and where they work at and meeting them where they're at really helps. So I've been able to start a project to get a recyclable can instead of Powerade bottles, just for the student athletes during their practice. And so thinking about where those zero waste wins or those resource recovery wins can happen really helps to drive your program forward and make those connections throughout campus and throughout your universities. And then lastly, I'd like to say that connecting with your peers. So I've actually gotten a lot of support from GSA and from GSA partners, whether it's just getting inspiration from a reusable cup project that someone's doing, or having met somebody in a webinar and gaining some insight. I think really connecting with your peers is a good way to start, because a lot of the work is out there. It's just a matter of you finding it. Connecting with Lee for social media call outs, things like that, where you don't have to do the brunt of that work yourself. A lot of that is already out there. So really connecting with other people. And then I did want to highlight a few of the food resource recovery things that we are doing at USC to hopefully draw some inspiration from. So for Earth Month, we're gearing up by collaborating with campus. So continue that conversation, seeing where we can fit into the sustainability conversation and the food resource recovery conversation. At the Coliseum, we do donations. I know that someone had mentioned how you got your concessionaire to basically agree to having food donations. What I would say to that is that it depends on the food that you're donating. And really, it's having those conversations with your chefs and your kitchen staff is, what food do they have that can be donated? Because if it's produce, fruits, like non-perishable items, those are a lot easier to donate than already cooked foods. And for some of our events, we don't donate like hot dogs or nachos because, first of all, they don't meet the nutritional requirements for food donation, but then at the same time, they go bad after a few hours and can't be given away. So working with your kitchen staff to see what materials you guys have and what food waste is created can really help that conversation and get it going. Also, I wanted to mention something that Elaine had brought up, which was the network, or just going online to find places that take donations. I find it really easy, and honestly, when one of our when our main partner dropped out for our last event, I was able to just look up on a website, find an organization that they were just picked up when I called them, and then able to get that set up. So there are organizations out there that want to take food and are willing to take it, and they already have their systems set in place. Pretty much, as they can take as much food as you have. So reaching out to those organizations, using that resource that Elaine mentioned, can really help food donation specifically get going. And one last thing that Jay had mentioned about food trucks. Auditing food trucks was a problem for me as well. And I found success literally in going into those food trucks and just checking what materials it had. Seeing what was being sold to people, like whether or not they had compostable boats for nachos or something like that. And then once I saw that that was a product that they're selling, just going inside and talking to them, hey, by the way, because of our policies, and again, going back to that high level, breakdown, hey, because of our policies, we can't sell this item because it's not compostable. And then at least for that event, it's something that they're not selling and we're not creating that waste. And then further along the line, it's talking to your concessionaire about, hey, by the way, I did see that these vendors were selling food in these containers, and that's not, we have an agreement, or, that's not okay. And coming into those conversations, obviously not trying to reprimand, but, trying to show them and communicate. So I think that helps with that success. But if anyone has any questions, yeah, just let me know. I think that's my piece.
Thank you, Chris. It's great to hear all of the amazing accomplishments that you've had at USC and continue to work on over there. I think it's also really interesting to see kind of geographically how different institutions can successfully approach the different things. In California, you've got a legislation, higher up that is primed to be more supportive, either because they're forced to be more supportive or because they inherently, this is something they're passionate about, which when you're looking at somewhere like a Tennessee, that is, geographically in the South, there's a little less uptake on initiatives like this, that kind of no matter where you are, there's ways to work with your stakeholders and see really big accomplishments. And so I really appreciate all of the speakers sharing their stories with us today. We've only got a few minutes left, so I know we've had a couple questions come up in the chat that we'll work on addressing right now. If you've got any others, please put them in there, and I can stay on for a few extra minutes if people want to chat more specifically about what's going on at their campus. If the speakers can, great, but their expectation is not necessarily to, if you've got next meetings to go to. But yeah, I hope, again, the wheels are turning on what can we do to get athletics involved in Earth Month in general, or as it specifically relates to planet versus plastic, or what can we do on the food recovery piece, that there's, again, just so many different ways to work through these or work on different options. I know one of the questions we got was sharing examples of different campus and athletic stakeholders and how they support your efforts. That was specifically to Chris. And so we've only got those couple minutes left, but let's maybe talk through that, because Sam, do we feel like we've gotten an answer to your question? Sam had asked, how do you get legal to cover? And there's federal legislation that protects you. Well, I guess very briefly to answer that, federal legislation that protects from a food donation standpoint, and that has been kind of the most successful, I think, on multiple meetings it might take, but to communicate that they're going to be free from liability. And yeah, I guess we're going to probably just continue talking until people need to pop off. But I want to address that question of different campus stakeholders.
Yeah, I could speak to that. So in terms of different campus and athletic stakeholders supporting my efforts, it depends. If you have an office of sustainability, it's a lot easier to get that conversation started. You already know your managers, you already know your coordinators. Otherwise, it's really tough, because it kind of comes up, as you're searching for it. I would say reaching out to athletic directors specifically, or whoever is, below them. That's a good way to start. Reaching out to anybody at the Office of Sustainability, or reaching out at venue managers. So I know that Galen Center specifically, that's our basketball stadium, and that's completely, in a separate part of campus. But they have a different hauler, and they have a specific venue sustainability coordinator. And so knowing who those people are, and then just setting up, meetings to see what are they doing, where can we help you, and really having that conversation is how you can get each other to support, especially across campus or across departments.
We talked a bit about that in the last webinar that we had in the collegiate series, which was the business of collegiate sports sustainability. And we talked a lot about how to build those relationships across athletics and campus and different stakeholders to bring in, and that a good strategy is going with them more with an introduction rather than an ask, and starting to develop that relationship before you need something from athletics can be helpful in some instances. I know we're at our time, so people are hopping off. Thank y'all so much. Again, if people want to keep chatting, I am good to keep chatting about these things. Speakers, I don't know if y'all need to hop off, or Elaine, if you had anything to add on the overcoming the legislation or the legal issues with food donation.
No, and I think Jay had mentioned that they engaged their chef. And I know even school-based, we had the legislation, and they were reluctant because of health department constraints. So then we had to make sure we also had our local health department policy on the food recovery as well.
Gotcha. What other questions? Who else wants to chit chat? I know we had a question about a teach-in. Is that, who asked
Yeah,
that?
we did address that, but
Okay.
I can talk about it just briefly. So yeah, teach-in is, like Suki said, it's a older form of kind of education, basically holding an informal class to talk about, you know, just any issue. Like I said, it really started as a part of the Vietnam War protest movement, and then it kind of became the foundation for Earth Day. But now Earth Day still includes teach-ins to this day, but they're not as large of a part of the efforts that they used to be.
Yeah.
But if you know anyone, any students or faculty who would like to organize an event or a teach-in, I would love to get in touch with them.
Sweet. And I'm a bit after time on the things that I was going to drop in the chat and switch to this last slide. If anyone wants to schedule a meeting with me anytime, that QR code goes to my booking link. So you can just book whenever works best for your schedule. And then I also included in the chat, our next piece in the Collegiate series is going to be a networking session in March, on March 26th, specific to representatives, current representatives at colleges and universities. So it'll be students, faculty, and staff will be part of that networking session. For anyone who's still with the university and would be interested in joining that, I threw that RSVP in the chat.